distribution. Tell the people in the villages, we're going to come by, make sure you're using the bed nets appropriately. So I look for very practical things. How many clinics are being built? How many nurses are being trained? How many bed nets are being distributed? How many doses of artemisinin and combination drugs are being used? How many sacks of fertilizer are being distributed to impoverished farmers? So my view is, let's not make this too complicated. Let's keep our eye on the real practicalities. Let's realize that, yeah, money will go missing if you just ship it from our treasury to their treasury. We probably won't get it down to the villages. So I'm interested in more practical approaches that really hit the ground right into the villages. There's a doctrine, again, one of my favorite church doctrines is subsidiarity. Subsidiarity says go to the level where something is appropriate and go to the lowest level where it's appropriate. So we've been pursuing something called Millennium Villages. And this, again, is a project taken up by Millennium Promise, an umbrella organization promoting the Millennium Development Goals. And these Millennium Villages are helping right at the village level. So the fertilizer, the seed, the bed nets go right to the villages. That's no good for building a highway. Villages don't build a highway. Highways are built between villages. But if you're talking about the clinic, the school, the farming, the bed nets, that should be on a subsidiarity basis for aid, which is the aid should be directed to the lowest level that's right to the community, and the help should go at that level.
Fair enough. For those folks, those of us who are not international political economists, one of the questions that comes up often is the strong stress you have placed, I think quite legitimately, on the responsibility of the international community. Your knowledge of Catholic social teaching will get you a doctorate immediately, any place you'd like to go in the United States. And so you've stressed the structural and conceptual parts of the Catholic teaching that are important. But one of the questions is the relative importance of internal reform in countries versus external assistance. I think this cathedral would immediately support the moral imperative of external assistance from a country like ours. Tell us, though, a little bit about, on a 100% scale, the relative importance of what happens internally and what happens from external assistance.
Great and important question. Nothing can be done systematically from the outside when a country is ruled by a true thug, if I could put it that way, and that tragically happens. I also don't believe that we can solve those problems from the outside in the way we thought we could. I think we have to be a little bit more clever about it than thinking war can solve that. But I call countries like that thugocracies. It's obviously my own neologism, but I don't believe that we can have huge effects in thugocracies. And those are real problems and tragedies on the planet. For me, the sad part is, though, that as real as such places are, there are other places that are impoverished, governed by people completely dedicated to the advancement of their countries, who also don't get help, or don't get very much help at all. And so I'm working with many, many democratically elected leaders in Africa. President Kikwete of Tanzania, for instance. President Toure of Mali. President Kufuor of Ghana. The President of Mozambique and Madagascar. These are wonderful people. President Johnson Sirleaf, the first woman elected president in Africa. Wonderful people. Very brave, democratically elected. They happen to be governing in impoverished countries. They're ready to do their part. They're begging to do their part. Begging is not right. They're very dignified, but they're absolutely prepared to do their part. But we also are not systematically helping them either. Now, corruption, even in non-thugocracies, is pretty much, a real social fact of life. If you transfer money to a central government, whether it's through Washington or whether it's through Dar es Salaam or through Bamako, Mali, by the time it reaches the village level, there'll have been a lot of hands in the pot. And we have to be clever, but I know the leaders in these countries want to be clever to make sure that they reach the very bottom. And let me give you an example. President Museveni of Uganda took a policy so that money that was destined for the schools, every school in the country, would get announced to that school to be put on a blackboard so that the local parents would know how much money's supposed to come, and they'd be able to demand of the local headmaster of the school, has the money come, what's it been done for, and so on. And this was advertised throughout the schools. It tremendously improved the accountability of local communities for the education. So being clever is important. All of this is to say that governance is a real issue. You need the engagement of local government and leadership without question. Nothing in development can be done for people that are not organized to be helping themselves. But we should understand that the extreme poor are so poor that naturally governance is going to be very fragile because there aren't computers on the desks, there aren't phones and feedback and MBAs and others that make the system work as efficiently as it should. So help is needed even in that area. But maybe if I could, without meaning to filibuster, just give you one example. I was in Madagascar this summer at the President's invitation. We talked a lot about malaria control on that impoverished island. I urged them to make a very bold malaria control program, to submit it to the Global Fund to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. About 2 days before the proposal was due, I got a call from the President's aide who said, "Jeff, you came here, you told us to make a big plan. We did so, but now the donors are telling us we must not submit such an ambitious plan because it's asking for too much money." If you can imagine, they were asking for too many bed nets. And they were told, no, we're not financing so much. Now that's what I am saying we've got to stop. When governments want to do the right thing, when they're well governed, when they're ready to lead, should we be telling them, whoa, slow down. Only give a third of the bed nets your country needs because we're not putting in so much money, when so much is almost nothing from our point of view. That's, I think, where the real issue is. Mm-hmm. Don't slow down those who want to help themselves. Make, as President Kennedy said, the best effort to help those who are helping themselves. Then we'll give an example to all the rest of the world.
Let's talk a little bit about different instrumentalities of help. This conference has a very central focus on the point 7, which, as you know better than the rest of us, is still a long road to go in this country. But I think the kind of arguments you make about the larger question is the way to approach then the argument that both it's doable and it will work. But help us to put in context the relative role of official development assistance. We know it's essential, but its relative role vis-a-vis, for example, trade policy and trade as an instrumentality of development. Help us to understand that relationship.
Great. For the poorest of the poor, surprisingly, since I carried the title Professor of International Trade at Harvard University for 22 years, I would say that the resources are more important than the trade in this case. And that's for a couple of reasons, both of which are a little bit surprising. One